Hello, welcome and welcome back. Thank you for clicking on this video. My name is Esther and I'll be showing you how to make this lovely tutu circle skirt. For a 5 to 6 year old size, I use 1.5 yards of satin fabric, 4 yards of tulle, 1 inch elastic by 24 inches and ribbon. The measurements required for this skirt is your desired skirt length, the hip circumference and the waist circumference. Mine is displayed on the screen. For my lining piece, which is my satin fabric, I am folding it lengthwise. I've already done that, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it widthwise. For the radius of this circle skirt, you want to divide the hip measurement by 6.28. You can as well add 2 inches to this hip measurement if you like, but make sure you divide the hip measurement by 6.28. When folding over, just make sure that you have your desired skirt length and the radius as the fold over. So right here, my fabric is on 4 fold and I'm going to pin to secure that in place. So at this folded corner, I'm going to go ahead and mark my radius. The radius of the skirt I'm working with was 4.8 inches, so I decided to use 5 inches, which is totally okay since it's going to be pulled up. So it's fine if it's slightly wider than the hip measurement. So when I realized that it wasn't very visible, I decided to go in with a blue chalk to make it visible. So next is for me to mark the desired skirt length from that radius point. Don't forget to put into account that this skirt will be having a band, so you take out the band measurement and include the necessary allowance to it. With that, I'm going to go ahead and cut out my circle skirt. So this is how you want your circle skirt to look. Just set that aside. Let's work on the tulle. For the tulle, I have my tulle knits here folded lengthwise and widthwise the way we did for the satin fabric. It's just that this time it's wider than the satin fabric. I just took the whole 4 yards and divided it into 2. Since my tulle is by 60 inches, for my amount of tulle, I had 2 layers. So right here I have 2 layers of tulle and I'll pin and secure that in place. So you want to make sure that you cut your tulle radius to be more than the satin radius. So this is the method I use in cutting mine. I first of all take a radius from my folded over. So right here I have about 28 inches. So I'm going to take a 28 inches around and then I'm going to cut that out. I know it's not very obvious here because I use a fabric marker because I don't want it turned. So I just cut the first radius out. So from the down part of that radius, I'm going to measure my desired tulle length. So measure your skirt length right there. Please, when you're measuring it, take into account that you are not hemming the tulle, but you'll be attaching the tulle to the band. So put the appropriate allowance to that. So now that I have taking that around, I'm going to go ahead and cut it. So whatever is left up there is my radius. I think I had about 13 inches up there as my radius. Meanwhile, the original radius for my satin skirt was 5 inches. In case you're wondering why we have more, it's because we are going to gather the upper part of this tulle to give us a little bit of puff. So right here, I'm just going to take my tulle individually. I'm going to gather it to be the same size with the waist of my skirt. And to my satin fabric, I'm going to roll hem the bottom part of it. After roll hemming the lining part, that's the satin fabric, and also gathering the tulle. So to gather my tulle, I basically run 2 stitches using the widest stitch length on my machine. So with that, I'm just going to hold on to the thread and just pull it to gather it. So you want to keep doing this and adjusting these gathers to be the same with your satin skirt. After you've gathered your tulle, do well to stitch it onto your satin. So make sure that the right side of your satin is facing up and you're going to stitch it on. So this is how it looks after I've stitched mine on. It's time to work on the waistband. The height of my waistband here is 4 inches and the length is the waist circumference. So do well to measure around the waist circumference and add a little bit to stitch it together. So you want to add a little bit of seaming allowance there so that you can seam it off. So to make it very easy to attach, I want you to fold your waistband in half and you're going to fold in the raw edges. Make sure that when you're folding off the raw edges, whatever you have is enough to accommodate your elastic band. So right here I've stitched the side of my waistband, so it's now one piece, and I've pressed the raw edges in and I've also pressed it in half. I'm going to place my waistband right side pressing my tulle. I'm going to go ahead and open up that raw edge part, and I'm going to take to my sewing machine and stitch it all around. Please note that I only stitch one part of the band, so the other side I'm going to fold it over and stitch it as well. But before I do, since I'll be using elastic band, so I'm leaving an opening of about 2 inches. So with that, I use pin to indicate where I won't be stitching. So I'm going to stitch the rest except where I have this pin placed. So right here I've stitched leaving that opening for my elastic. So my elastic band right here, I took 2 inches away from the waist circumference measurement. So the waist circumference was 26 inches and my elastic is measured 24 inches. I'm going to use safety pin to thread my elastic. In order not to lose the end of my elastic, I just use the pin and secure that in place while I thread the other end. After threading the elastic, do well to overlap it and stitch that opening. Sorry, I didn't know I was out of focus at this point. But when you're done, your sketch should look like this, or even better if you have lots of layers of tulle. So I'm going to be stitching on my 1/2 inch ribbon at the hem of my tulle, but you can leave it this way if you don't have a ribbon. Then I'll use the remaining tulle that I have to make a bow for my skirt. And this is how it looks after I have made a bow for the skirt and also I have stitched on the ribbon. Thank you for watching to this point. If this tutorial has been helpful in any way or any form, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you and see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.